Cameron's Hugga speech and now runs the prison rehabilitation charity Only Connect, joins us from Oxford, and Ben Gunn, who's an ex-offender and criminal justice consultant, is here. Danny, do you think the government's on the right track with this, that prisoners, when you start in jail, you should start at the bottom and earn a better life?
Yes, I think the principle's right, and in practice this is probably not a huge change to the status quo. There's already lots of ways in which prisons manage their prisoners by giving and withdrawing privileges, and I think it makes sense to start closer to the bottom perhaps and to work your way up. They've got to be well managed. I do think this is a little bit of a distraction from the main thrust of what the government's trying to do. This really is about a revolution in the way that prisons are managed and the way that prisoners are expected to behave. The real problem with prisons is not, to my mind, how hard or soft the regime is and what television stations they're allowed to watch, but the fact that they spend most of their time lying on their backs doing very little at all. Most people probably think that prisons are violent, dangerous places. In fact, they're pretty sleepy, very safe places where nothing much happens. And what the government's trying to do is to turn them into places of industry and hard work. And I think that's the main emphasis of these reforms.
But Ben, do you buy into that this is part of a picture, but it's important to set the tone right at the start when you enter prison?
I think having the gates shut behind you sets the tone. You don't need to have to wear a stripy shirt to rub your nose in it. It's pointless. It's petty politicking. Like, I can see a broad thrust in transforming rehabilitation and making prisons places of industry and, well, purposeful activity, not just mindless repetitive work, but genuine skilled work. But this has got nothing to do with it.
But can you see that the reason this kind of idea keeps coming back and back is it's very popular. People do,
yes.
as Danny accepts, sitting at home think, prisoners have an easy life, they get to choose to watch TV, there's no human right to watch a particular video, this is ridiculous.
But it also illustrates the ridiculousness of the counter policy. See, you ban prisoners from buying 18-rated DVDs, so what do? They rent their television from the prison for £1 a week and turn on a late-night film, which is rated 18. It's pointless. It is literally petty politicking, and ministers who interfere with the minutiae of prison regimes tend to get bitten at some point.
Danny, do you see that, even though you and Ben, I presume, agree about the need to change the regime in terms of education and making stuff more improving for the prisoners, this does send the wrong signal? It's just populist politics that we've seen many times before, and it fails. People, as he said, ministers get bitten when they do this kind of thing.
Well, they might do. I mean, that's for the politicians to decide for themselves. I think there is, Ben's got a good point there. There's certainly politics being played here. And what I worry about, I guess, is that it feeds into the idea that it's possible to deter crime by having really tough regimes. I do think we need to have what the minister describes as Spartan regimes. I think it's appropriate that prisoners don't have better lifestyles on the inside than people have on the outside. But nevertheless, it's not possible to deter or to stop crime by making prisons more and more tough. Unless we're prepared to be not just Spartan, but absolutely medieval, unless we're prepared to brutalise prisoners completely, we're never going to make prisons so unpleasant that the ones we need to worry about, the criminals that we need to worry about, are deterred from going there, because the fact is that their home lives, their lives on the streets, are so dangerous and so unpleasant that any form of prison in a civilised country is going to be safer than that. So deterrence through tougher regime, is not the answer to the real problem of prolific and violent crime. What we need to do with the criminals that we're all so worried about is give them proper networks, proper relationships, enable them to build a supportive community that will to be there for them both before and after they come out. And that's the real emphasis.
Well, there is a difficulty with that. I mean, part of the proposal, well, the practice as it comes in today from Mr. Grayling is that prisoners' contact with their families will be restricted. Prisoners are only allowed to spend X amount of money in their first 2 weeks now, and the main contact with families is by phone. So now prisoners won't be able to phone home and maintain their family contacts.
Well, with respect, Ben, I think what you're doing there is you're playing the same game you're accusing Grayling of doing, which is getting into the minutiae. The fact is that the overall thrust of their policy is to improve relationships through the gate, but both before and after release, to ensure that prisoners spend the end of their sentence near their families, where they're going to be released to, and allow charities like mine to work inside the prison and build those contacts before they come out.
Danny, Ben, we're going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thank you both very much. Thank you. Well, that's all for this week. We leave you with news that New York